Buffalo Bills lose their first game of the 2023 season in very dramatic fashion. We're going to talk about the game today on The Wandering Buffalo.
You are now listening to the Wandering Buffalo podcast with your hosts, Justin Goddard and Andrew Chang.
Bills Mafia. That one was brutal. My name's Justin. Thank you for joining me on tonight's episode of the Wandering Buffalo podcast, a show brought to you by the Buffalo FamBase podcast network. Week 1 is in the books, and the Bills dropped an awfully bad stinker to the Jets, losing in horribly dramatic fashion in overtime, and just a lot of things that added up into this game about just not sitting right with me. You know, it's a couple NFL teams going at it. You're not going to win every game. I get all that. It's week 1, all that. But there was just so many circumstances in this game that it just felt like it never needed to happen. Just felt like it shouldn't happen. And I'm just going to kind of start out right at the top. You know, we always start with Josh Allen when he does good. You got to start with Josh Allen tonight. You know, I know there's 22 guys on the field at a time. I know it's not a one person game. Not one person wins or loses a game. I have to rest this game solely on the shoulders of Josh Allen at a certain point. There were some things that I liked early in the game. Not so much, the first quarter. It was kind of as we were moving towards halftime. It seemed like the offense was kind of getting their feet under them at first. And then, getting towards halftime, it felt like there was some rhythm being established. There's a lot of, little swing passes, stuff near the line of scrimmage. Diggs was involved, who had a great game for what it's worth. It was a lot of stuff near the line of scrimmage, but the ball was moving. Josh was taking the profits and being patient. And then we've kind of seen this throughout the last few years when teams are running this cover 2 shell on him and asking him to stay patient to beat them. He's shown that he can do it. He's beat teams, being patient, taking the profits. But every once in a while, it seems like, in a game like this, he's taking the profits, and then at some point he just stops being patient. And it's this, going for the home run ball. And on this one, it started with the first interception, which that one I'm not too upset about. It's, it was 3rd and long. You were probably about to punt anyways. They get it. The Jets get it inside their own 5. But what I don't like about that is sometimes when Josh starts making the mistakes, he gets in his own head and allows them to compound. So I thought kind of before the interception, he was having a pretty decent day. And then everything just snowballed, and it kept getting worse, and it kept getting worse. And then he, ends up with the 3 interceptions. 2 of them forced into triple coverage. There was a fumble that he lost, bobbling a snap, and then he gets it back and just tries to run straight ahead. It just seems like he needs to take a breath. He needs somebody to get him out of his own head. And he ends the day with 4 turnovers. Could have easily been a 5th on the play where he kind of runs into the backside of his own guys and the ball comes out, but the ref blows it dead on forward progress. If that ref lets that play go for, another half second, that was could have very easily been a fumble, and the Jets picked that up and took it back for a touchdown. So there's a lot that I have to put on Josh Allen in this game, and part of me is here wondering, what does that game look like if Aaron Rodgers didn't get hurt in the first series? Like, I think the Bills in the past have done a little bit of like adjusting and playing to the competition. And I think we've seen moments where Josh and the offense work better under pressure. We saw it in the fourth quarter. The offense had just given up all the momentum on turnovers. There was no rhythm going on. And then, back to the wall. I think there was a minute and 48 seconds left. Need at least a field goal to go to overtime. And they took it right down the field. Even overcame a bullshit offensive pass interference for what it's worth. I mean, that you see that play happen constantly, and that's just two dudes battling for position, and I don't know. Whatever. But they're able to go straight down the field to force overtime. And then of all the sequences in the game, this one is my least favorite. You get to overtime. Tyler Bass, doinks you one in. You've just had your heart attack, We made it to overtime. Everything's going in your direction. You win the toss. You got a chance to put it to... You just had all this momentum going to get you to overtime. You get the ball, and you just put it in the end zone, put the kids to bed. It's over. And this overtime sequence was just nonsense to me. I mean, you started out with a penalty. Okay. And then second down, you're gonna follow it up with the draw play. Looking like some 2007 Buffalo Bills. Like, we can't throw that far anyways. Let's just, run the ball and we'll do a draw play and maybe we'll spring it, but it never works. And we'll punt and get out of here. 2 incompletions on that drive. And just like, after everything that you just did, I'm texting my brothers like, maybe we should use some more tempo more often. I know it's a 2-minute drill, no timeouts there. It's a chess game. The defense is trying to, allow you to get some stuff, keep the clock running. I understand that. But the offense just came alive and was clicking. And then you have one coin toss and a kickoff later, and it's just this vanilla non-functioning offense again. I feel like I dislike that series just as much as I like the ensuing play of the Sam Martin punt return for a touchdown, not even making their offense touch the field. As the punt was in the air, I'm kind of watching, and I'm like, oh, there's nobody really getting near him on the coverage. And then it ends up taking it back to the house. I mean, there's a lot of talk going on out there about, the obvious mistripping penalty. Yeah, sure. I mean, that calls it back. Penalty from, I think that happened somewhere around like the 20. You kind of slap the penalty yardage on that, and they're probably still set up for pretty easy field goal to win the game anyways. We had our chance. There's some calls. The Steph Diggs one, the tripping penalty. There's some calls I can throw at the refs, but I'm not going to do that in a game like this. This loss is squarely on the Buffalo Bills. They had chances to kind of put this game away. The whole off-season talk about the Jets was, this team was knocking on the door of the playoffs, and with this defense and a combination of Flacco and Mike White and Zach Wilson, and now they got Aaron Rodgers, and we didn't even have to see Aaron Rodgers. And I'm concerned with what that game would have looked like had he been in there. Because all things equal, I mean, we'll get into it in the second half of the show, but all things equal, I think that game turns into an absolute massacre if Aaron Rodgers was on the other side of the ball. We're not going to be all fire and brimstone. There are some things that I liked that I want to talk about. Obviously, got to get kind of the disasters out of the way. I'm not sky is falling, but I'm not riding as high as I was before the game. I think it's going to be a very important week for the Bills to do some self-scouting and really take a look at what they're doing here. I do want to take a quick break and come back and talk about some of the things that I did like this week. So stick around.
Hey, this is Brother Bill. Now back to the show.
Bills Mafia, welcome back in, and thank you again for joining me on this week's episode of the Wandering Buffalo podcast. I said I wanted to take a break and talk about some of the things I liked, but there's a couple more things I wanted to touch on the negative side. On the offensive side of the ball, I think that there might be a conversation this week really talking about how the offensive line struggled to keep Josh Allen clean. And I think that's fair at times. There were some instances where I saw Spencer Brown in particular, and there was a couple plays where it was like a combination of Spencer Brown and Torrance being kind of backed right into Allen. But I'm going to tell you, the 5 sacks that Josh took today, I can't put all those on the offensive line. I think 2 or 3 of those were just kind of Josh getting into hero ball mode and not trusting the pocket. It seems like, I don't like 2 or 3 of those sacks were him just trying to break the pocket, and it still looks pretty clean and just going straight up the middle, and instead of the defender having to come upfield, he just kind of sheds to the hole and takes a sack. It's something that I have a hard time assessing this often, because that goes into kind of the bucket of what Josh Allen does that makes him so special. Right, there's the plays where he bails on the pocket and makes amazing things happen, and it's crazy. But this game, it looked to me like he got to a certain point of not trusting the offensive line and just kind of getting himself out of the pocket and trying to take care of himself or something. So I think that was a big issue. Ken Dorsey, I feel like I said early in the game, there was a lot of stuff at the line of scrimmage, and I feel like the ball was being moved. But as we got into this later on in the game, we're pushing the ball down the field more. This is something I'll have to rewatch the game on to see, how much of it there is, and it's hard on the first watch on the broadcast, but I'm seeing a lot of plays where 2 players' routes are kind of ending in the same like frame on TV, like that they're kind of running to the same spot, and we talked about that a lot last year, of just kind of making it easier for the defense, that you're not putting them in conflict. They just kind of have to, you got that guy and I got this guy and they're the same area, so let's just stay together, instead of, some crossers or, just some moves between the wide receivers that make the secondary have to think about which guy they're following, and that half second, little thought about it is what can spring receivers open. I don't know, a lot going on there. I do want to talk about the defensive side of the ball a little bit. I thought overall it was a pretty solid day for the defense. giving up, we'll call it 22 total points, but giving up 16 points in the game. And, something that you really have to take into consideration here. Yes, it was Zach Wilson. We all know he's not very good. But, you're also talking about a whole 4 extra possessions given to them from turnovers. I think the commentators said at some point that they had 16 points and 13 of them came off of turnovers. Well, yeah. That's why turnovers are probably the biggest deciding factor of wins and losses. If you lose a turnover battle, 2-1, you can survive that pretty easily. You're talking even the worst teams in the NFL. You're giving them a whole 4 extra possessions to score some points on you. They're professional athletes on the other side too. You can only keep them at bay for so long, and even at that, the only touchdown they allow goes to Garrett Wilson. Trey White had perfect coverage on the play. I don't really expect him to do much more there. And Garrett Wilson reaches out, tips it up to himself, catches it one-handed falling to the ground. That's a ridiculous play. Those happen in the NFL. Outside of that, you kept him out of the end zone. That's with this offense that we're supposed to have, this offense that we do have that didn't do it today. That should be all you have to ask for from your defense, and I thought they did it. Now, it wasn't flawless. At one point, Breece Hall had 2 carries for 109 yards. That's not ideal. He ends up with 10 carries for 127 yards, so it's an improvement there. And he had 8 more carries for 19 yards. That's cool. Dalvin Cook didn't really do anything. Held Zach Wilson to 140 yards, a touchdown, an interception on 14 completions, 21 attempts. That's not a terrible day in the NFL for the secondary there. Their running game. This is something that I'm kind of expecting to see throughout the season, in particular with the question marks at the middle linebacker. Terrell Bernard's first starting action of the year. He didn't get any preseason reps. He's responsible for aligning the defense. You call it wrong and a gap's not covered, and a little crease is all it takes for these NFL linebackers to break one open. So I expect to see a 40, 50, 60-yard run busted on us once in a while. And honestly, as frustrating as it is to watch, I can live with those occasionally. If it means that our secondary is, shutting down the pass. Our defensive line today was one of the keys that I had for this game. And I thought we had a good performance from the defensive line. Especially, we're still without Von Miller. I thought Leonard Floyd filled in admirably for his first game with the Bills. Came away with the sack. Jordan Phillips had a sack in there. And Matt Milano was buzzing all over the field. I know that's into linebackers, but I'm going to lump him in here. Just seems like the Bills were pretty active in the backfield, and that's something that I wanted to see. Oh, Greg Rousseau was all over the place early and often. He was great in run support. And I feel like his pressure in a game like that isn't always going to show up on paper very much. Excuse me. But yeah, I think the Bills had 3 sacks, 8 quarterback hits, something like that. But the pressures were there all day, and that was really encouraging to see. Again, this is one it's week 1. I'm not gonna, just have supreme confidence that everything's taken care of there. You are playing against a Jets offensive line that I've talked about being suspect. You got aging player there. You got a couple guys coming back from season-ending injuries. You got Mekhi Becton, who has been back and forth with injuries and up and down inconsistency in his career. So I'm not going to read too much into it right now. But I thought it was an encouraging game for the defensive line. But yeah, overall, just a very frustrating game. I thought Taylor Bass was a nice small bright side in the game. Perfect on field goals when he was called upon, 3 for 3. I liked some of the mix with the run game. James Cook getting involved in the passing game. I think that could be a real weapon used in this passing offense. And modest production for the tight ends today. I think between the two of them, like 50 yards. But it was nice to see kind of be able to see how they can kind of coexist with each other and create opportunities for each other. In the limited action I've gotten with Dalton Kincaid, first regular season game, I'm very encouraged and excited for him. Showed very sure hands, 4 catches on 4 targets. And, for all the talk of him kind of being like big slot, think of him more of a slot receiver than a tight end. When he was running with the ball in his hands, he sure as hell looked more like a tight end than a wide receiver to me. He was putting his shoulder through people and, not going down on first contact, making sure he's delivering the punishment. So I love to see that to finish off a run. But that's going to do it for this week. Hopefully, the Bills bounce back and have a better performance next week. Going against the Raiders. Ton to work on this week, ton to go back to the drawing board on, and I will be interested to see, what team comes out of the tunnel next week. Is this, something that they can move beyond pretty quickly? Because look, the talent's on this roster, and as it stands with the NFL right now, all the hype that we were upset about in the offseason, all the hype about, the Bills are, no longer the team to beat in the AFC East. And, we were sick of them crowning the Jets. We were sick of them crowning the Dolphins. Well, the Dolphins and the Jets just took care of business. The Dolphins did it in a dramatic, high-scoring, affair with the Chargers. Their quarterback throwing for 465 yards, The Jets came in and their whole hype the offseason was, taking this good base team that they have and adding Aaron Rodgers to it. And that team is going to unseat the Bills and the AFC East. Well, that team came in without Aaron Rodgers and knocked off the Buffalo Bills. So, where it stands right now, the media is going to be all over this game because this one little sample size, first week of the season where all kinds of weird stuff happens, is going to confirm everything that they've said all off season that we got mad about. So it's up to the Bills to answer right now. Like I said earlier in the episode, it was a dramatic, disgusting, terrible game to watch and terrible way to lose. But it is week 1. We see all kinds of weird stuff happen every year in week 1. Excuse me. We had the Chiefs losing. We had the Bengals losing to the Browns, getting absolutely torched by the Browns. Joe Burrow not looking good. I was talking to my brothers before the game, and I wonder what Bills Mafia is going to look like if Josh Allen, started the season with a stinker like Burrow did. Well, we're going to find out this week because sure did happen. Yeah, week 1 is a, crazy week in the NFL. It's always filled with weird games and blowouts and unexpected victors. But like I said, as of right now, that game went very much for the Jets are coming in with, the pressure and something to prove. And I feel like that one game is enough to move that pressure to the Bills. The Jets put some stuff on tape that the rest of the division can look at and, find a way to frustrate Allen, dare him to stay patient. And that's going to be the film that teams look at when they're coming up on the Bills of, well, what did the Jets do to, really make Allen have such a bad day? Because don't get me twisted. He is still one of the best quarterbacks in the league. Top 2, top 3. But the Jets have found a recipe to really frustrate him and really get him to start pressing and, stop taking profits. And there's a book being written there right now. This is, going back to last year, this is the third game where they've really been able to frustrate Josh Allen and lull him to sleep into some mistakes. I don't know, lull him into forcing it. So 2 losses and 1 win for the Bills in those meetings with the Jets, and there's something to what they're doing there. So other teams are going to look at it. But we are going to get out of here. Thank you for joining me on this episode this week. If you have made it this far, if you listened to us at all, do ask that you like, share, subscribe. I know everybody says it every week, but it really does help us continue doing what we're doing here. Really kind of get the word out, build the fan base here. Thank you to everybody involved with the Buffalo fan base. Just great group of people, putting out great shows. If you've been listening to this show, make sure you swing on over there, check out some of the other great shows on the network. Like I said, great people. But that's going to do it tonight. Thank you again for joining me, and go Bills.